What's up, people? What I'm wondering is, I don't know if the connection is going to be any good right now. I don't know what you guys are going to see. I don't know if it's going to be laggy. If we go outside, then the only thing that you're going to hear is airplanes, and that simply won't do. Let's talk I-70 killer, because yesterday I was getting ready for bed, and basically this little bug came up and was like, let me put something in. Let me look more at Brossman in the I-70 killer. And I had completely forgotten that Tim Hickman at the Store of Many Colors in Raytown, Missouri had seen the I-70 killer approaching the building and also making his getaway after the murder of Sarah Blessing. Yeah, we just started. Let me know if there's any lags out, because I'm in kind of a different environment right now and I don't know how the connection's going to be. And I'd forgotten that Tim Hickman had seen this guy. Well, in case if you didn't know, author Bob Cyphers, who's a journalist that embedded with the numerous law enforcement jurisdictions investigating these I-70 killings in 1992, had interviewed Tim Hickman. Sound is a little weird. What does it sound like? Is it like warbly? Echoey or something? I'm in an echoey room. I don't know. Let me know if you can't understand what I'm saying, because coherency is good enough at this point. What is that on the table? So I'd forgotten that Tim Hickman had talked to, or Bob Cyphers had talked to Tim Hickman, and Tim Hickman pretty much told him interference. Okay, stand by. Like static. It's not true. How about now? What if you're off of the? Okay. What about now? Is it better? Check 1, 2. Because it might be that it's covered up. All right, Bob Cyphers talked to Tim Hickman, the witness at the Raytown, Missouri Store of Many Colors homicide of Sarah Blessing. And he showed him the 2001 Billy Brossman surveillance footage, and he said, "Is this the same man that you saw in 1992? And Tim Hickman emphatically replied, "Yes, sir." Now, I like to not take, witness reports like this at face value. I don't like to just go, okay, well, then that confirms to me that the I-70 killer shot Billy Brossman, without at least, at bare minimum, probing the credibility of the witness. So I read and saw some. No, I don't have my wallet. My wallet's at the house for you if you want it. It's over there, my love. Eyewitness accounts always iffy. Well, some of that has to do with, I love you, with the credibility of the person who's giving the account. And so I looked at the rest of the Tim Hickman interviews that I could find, whether that was written in the press or if that was filmed, because we actually do have some video of Tim Hickman outside the crime scene talking with Bob Cyphers and his team. And what I want to say is that Tim Hickman seems like an extremely level-headed, coherent witness. I put good stock in Tim Hickman's witness identification of the man he saw in 1992 being the same man who shot Billy Brossman. So that's kind of like point one. I'm writing this thing here. Let me look at it, because I was going to do this for my computer, but I'm going to be busy for a while, so I might as well get into it here. If I can find it. Point one that I actually addressed was that Tim Hickman positively identified Brossman's murderer as the same man he saw at the 1992 crime scene Store of Many Colors. Hickman appears to be a credible witness with a coherent recollection of the 1992 I-70 crime scene. He has not sought fame or recognition. He was emphatic in his identification of the 2001 offender, replying, "Yes, sir," to Bob Cypher's inquiry. Going through it point by point, the known composite sketches of the I-70 killer are consistent in their general likeness, and the 2001 shooter strongly resembles these composites. So here's what I mean. I'm not saying that the 2001 offender is consistent with the appearance of the I-70 sketches. I'm saying that the I-70 sketches themselves are consistent in their general likeness. And on top of that, the Brossman offender resembles those composites. So it's one thing to be like, oh, he looks like the sketch. It's another thing to be like, how accurate is this sketch? If we had one sketch of the 1992 I-70 killer and then the guy looks like him, then you can make a pretty decent argument that, well, maybe the sketch doesn't even look like the offender. But the fact that we have 4, and actually I have a new sketch that I've never seen before. I don't think I can put it on screen, but I'll look into that. New scene, a new sketch from the Nancy Kitzmiller crime scene. I've never seen this. I don't know where it came from, but I got it photographed and logged now. So basically, it's a very rare, often never before seen composite sketch of the I-70 killer, and he's got, kind of longer hair. But the facial features are very similar. And here's the thing: when we have 4 or 5 composite sketches of this offender, and all 4 or 5 of those are very similar in their likeness, then we can start to say, okay, this composite sketch probably holds some weight. Because if we look at 4 or 5 of them and they're sourced from different places and yet they all have a very similar appearance, then we can start to think, okay, maybe we're looking at a decent representation of the offender's likeness. And if the 2001 Brossman shooter resembles that likeness, then not only do we have a relatively compelling similarity between the Brossman shooter and those composites, we also have Tim Hickman's witness identification to tell us that's the guy. So I think those two things by themselves are extremely compelling towards this being the same offender. The 7th and 70th liquor store is in close proximity to Silvio's Ceramics, where Mick McCallum was murdered in 1992. I learned this last night. I knew that they were close proximity, but I didn't know that they're actually less than a mile apart. And if you want to fact check that, I would recommend it, because I don't know if that's true. But this is what I heard. It's what I read last night. That 7th and 70th and Sylvia's Ceramics are less than a mile apart from each other. And Sylvia's Ceramics is a 92 crime scene, and 7th and 70th is the 01 Brossman crime scene. The robbery of the 7th and 70th was clearly a secondary motive. The beer was left behind, and some money may have been left behind. So we have this robbery, which is clearly not why the offender's there. It seems to me. And then we have this murder on top of that. And this is very similar, of course, to the I-70 crime scenes. Major importance to me, this is one of the things I look at as huge, is that the Brossman murderer demonstrates remarkable forensic awareness. Where are his other crimes? Forensic awareness generally isn't something that someone learns overnight. Unless you study serial killers and you study police forensics procedures, like with some vigor, then you're probably not going to know certain things, like use a revolver not to eject shell casings, the way that the Brossman murderer touches. He doesn't leave any fingerprints at the crime scene, despite not wearing gloves, and he doesn't eject shell casings, and he really leaves us nothing to go off of. Now, it's possible that an offender operates so smoothly and operates with such forensic awareness on his very first time robbing a gas station and killing someone, but it's very unlikely. With that in mind, where are his other crimes? The man who robbed the 7th and 70th liquor store and shot Billy Brossman, where else has he committed gas station robberies? Do we know where these are? And to date, we haven't found those. And so, with that in mind, is it not possible that his other crimes are the 1992 murders by the I-70 killer? The firearm used in the I-70 murders was widely publicized. Given the I-70 killer's notable forensic awareness, this firearm was almost certainly disposed of before 1993, when the Texas I-35 spree began, and the ballistics links is believed to have been broken. So, when those 1992 shootings happened, it was widely disseminated that the Irma work pistol was being used by the shooter. Now, what's really interesting to me about the Irma workie and the in the I-70 killer is that we do have a witness who claims that the I-70 killer used a firearm that looked like an Uzi. If that's true, then there's a reasonable argument to be made that the killer was actually using an Intratec Scorpion. But law enforcement seems completely convinced that the weapon that was used by the I-70 killer was the Irma workie. Now, at least publicly, what they've said is that the firearm was an Irma workie. And they've put photographs of the Irma workie, and they've told everybody, look out for this German 22 caliber target shooting pistol from the early 19th century. And what I want to know is, do they actually believe that that's the weapon used, or is that the narrative that's being spread? I don't see it anymore. It's there somewhere. Oh, check the pants pockets of the pants that are on the floor at the foot of the bed. There's like 2 pairs of them there right there. I don't know. I definitely don't have it on me. So I think it's in the pants pockets. So police have, in multiple jurisdictions, both the I-70 Killer Task Force and the individual jurisdictions investigating these crimes, have publicly stated that they think that the Irma workie was used. Now, are they lying to us in the hopes that if they ever do get a suspect or a confession, that the person that they're interviewing can say, fucking Zap, that the person interviewing that they're interviewing can say, oh, well, I didn't use an Irma workie, I used an Intratec Scorpion, and then they go, oh, got you, you're the guy, right? Oh, geez. So, hold on. My guess is that no, that's not what they're doing. I don't think they're holding back the type of firearm. I think that, to be honest, I don't really know where the Intratec Scorpion information came from. I don't know. I think that what might have happened is that they had a witness report that said he saw an Uzi-style firearm. You can't believe what? Can't believe what's that. I think that what actually happened is they have a witness saying that they saw an Uzi-style firearm, and the police said, well, the only 22 that looks like an Uzi is an Intratec Scorpion. And so they said it's either an Intratec Scorpion or it's an Irma workie. But I don't know where that Intratec Scorpion, I don't know if that comes from ballistics. I don't know if that's from the lands and grooves in the bullets. I don't know if that's from the ejector marks on the casings. I don't know where that information comes from. But I think what's more likely is that the Irma workie simply is the weapon that was used by the I-70 killer. Now, when the 93 killings happened in Texas along the I-35 killer, the ballistics no longer matched. I think that that's a clue that tells us that the Irma workie was disposed of. That as soon as that information came out, and it came out early, it came out in 1992, as soon as that information came out, because there were only a couple thousand of these things ever made, or a few thousand of them made, that the I-70 killer simply disposed of his Irma workie and switched to another firearm. He continued to eject shell casings, and that is why, or in part, that is why, there's 2 reasons why I think that he ditched 22s. I think that the first one is that the 22 caliber pistol used in the I-35 murders was one of several MO factor links between the I-70 and the I-35 sprees. But also I think that he left a survivor, Vicky Webb. And when that happened, he... It's there somewhere. Check the pants pockets. Or check in the computer, it's there. It's definitely there, BB. Let's see. Okay, so here's what I want to show you guys today. I want to get to a position of certainty on, is Brossman's killer the I-70 killer? And I think Tim Hickman's witness identification is going to at least push me in that direction enough where I can say, Brossman, yeah, she's probably not looking hard enough. Brossman probably was killed by the I-70 killer. So, that in mind, I'm going to show you guys composite sketches today. And we're going to operate with the assumption that these composite sketches do represent the I-70 killer. They definitely represent the Billy Brossman shooter, but they, in all probability, also, represent the I-70 killer. All right, and we're going to talk about how these were rendered, how these were made, and what they are. Back when I was not as good at drawing human faces, I came up with this idea to take proportionate measurements of the offender as seen on the surveillance camera at the 7th and 70th liquor store. In doing so, I then took those measurements and mapped them onto a blank canvas, and then filled in the human features on top of that. The results of that give you an offender who looks approximately like this. Yeah, I mean, sort of Zap. But anyway, the result of those measurements looks like this. And this is a copy of the charcoal drawing. I have the charcoal drawing, but it's honestly just looks more smeared. So this is a more clean copy. This is the Brossman shooter, the first proportionate composite. So this is done by taking measurements of his face in pixels, mapping them to a blank canvas, and then tracing that map. And you get this likeness of the Brossman killer, or probable I-70 killer. Okay, this is another set of measurements, done the same way, just done again at a separate time, and it yielded a different looking map, and this is that. Now, I also did square off the jawline kind of visually in freeform, and so you get something that looks, these are decidedly different looking sketches, but both represent the same man. Yeah, they're similar, but there's significant differences. Okay, now that I'm a little more practiced at drawing human faces, this time I didn't map it at all, and I just drew what I was looking at on the surveillance footage, and that gives you this likeness of the Brossman shooter. Well, this is what he looked like in 2001. Let me show you these. In order, they are composite 1, composite 2, composite 3. I like composite 3 the most. It looks the most like a real person, but I think the eyes are a little too close together. Then what I did is, because that was 2001, that's been 24 years, I age progressed composite 3. And this is a rough approximation of what he may look like now, without facial hair. Because this is his current appearance, approximately, making some assumptions that he was balding on the top of his head, so he probably has a bald pattern like that. If you know a man that looks like this and can be placed in Terre Haute, Indiana, 2001, and in Raytown, Missouri, 1992, contact immediately the St. Charles, Missouri. Yeah, I think he's still out there for sure. The insurance tables would say that he's still alive. I really think he's still out there. I think that he exists in a place where his DNA has either never been collected, or it's been collected and can't be matched to anything. But I think he's totally still alive, and that's why it's good to try to get some work done on this case, because this guy is still very much a danger to society, and he has no problem lying dormant for long periods of time before striking again, in very random and very fatal ways. His reach is far. He's offending all the way from Indiana to Texas. And I don't know my Midwest geography too much, but he's offending from Indiana to Texas, and he's offending over a period of time of, if the Brossman shooter is the I-70 killer, then he's striking over nearly a decade. So, what I will do next, and I'm going to release higher quality so you guys can get better pictures of this, is I'm going to put some facial hair on these copies. So I'm going to make one with a mustache and one with a goatee and this kind of thing. Hopefully we can... Did you find it? What do you think he did for a job? I don't know. The Brossman situation gets a little bit weird because when the surveillance footage was released, 2 witnesses came forward to law enforcement and said, we know the guy in the video. The guy in the video lived in Texas, and he admitted to being in Terre Haute in 2001, and he could be placed in several I-70 crime scene areas in 1992. So, as far as you think it involved travel? Possibly, but this is, don't rule, their people have come forward about the Brossman shooter, but for some reason, law enforcement can't prosecute this guy. They can't charge him, they can't do shit with him. Don't rule someone out just because he's not a long-haul trucker, or don't rule someone out just because his work doesn't have him traveling, because it's important to recognize the extremely high level of forensic awareness with this offender. This person is a highly skilled thrill killer who is not leaving enough evidence for us to go up. We don't have DNA profile. We don't have anything to work with here. And there's very minimal interaction with the crime scene, even during a double murder. We have a double murder in this series, and we are no closer, at least not publicly, to identifying who this guy is. And so, because of that level of forensic awareness, don't exclude the possibility that this man is traveling across the Midwest to kill people and get away with it. It's possible that his work has nothing to do with travel. It's possible that he can't be placed in. I think that if he could be placed in all these areas in the relevant time periods as a condition of his work, that would make him easier to find. And the fact that we haven't found him in 30 years indicates to me that, it would be good to write a profile, but the problem is he's so elusive. He's extremely elusive character. I think he's going to be somebody who engages in extreme risk-taking type behaviors. I think he's going to be a thrill seeker. I think he's going to be a firearms enthusiast because he knew enough to paint the feed ramp of his magazines with jeweler's rouge, and that's not something that everybody knows. Even, like, I'm a firearms enthusiast. I've been shooting since I was 11, and I've never heard of anything like that, putting jeweler's rouge on the feed ramp of a magazine, until I discovered this case. So that's a very obscure nugget of knowledge that somebody would have. Jeweler's rouge is like a polishing compound for jewelry. So jewelers will use it to make metal like a better finish, I guess. I don't know exactly. But he's putting jeweler's rouge on the feed ramp of the magazine of his firearm, and he appears to be also putting it on the cartridge casings. Either that material is being painted onto the cartridge casings directly, or it's being transferred as secondary transfer from the feed ramp of the magazine onto the cartridge casing during the operation of that firearm. And that tells us that this person knew how to improve the reliability of an extremely old firearm. I think this person is going to possibly be... It makes it so the weapon doesn't jam. Like it cycle better. Supposedly. I think this person is going to be a thrill-seeking, risk-taking individual. I think that he's going to know a lot about firearms, possibly be a firearms collector, possibly be a military historian of some form. The fact that he knew about an Irma Workie tells me that he either collects a large range of firearms, or he found out about it through historical research in some way. As to why he's using the Irma key, very strange. I don't know why. Hello. I don't understand why the I-70 killer was using such an obscure firearm, but there's probably some reason for it, and we might not know that reason until he's identified. So, if you have any information that could assist in the apprehension of the violent offender known as the I-70 killer, ask ChatGPT. That would be funny. I'm going to do that. Okay. Yeah, I'll go do that right now. I'm going to close out right now because I have things going on here. But I just wanted to bring you guys new composites and talk a little bit about I-70. I want to dive this case a little bit. The part of the problem with diving this case is that we know so little. And I think that law enforcement, has been extremely forthcoming with information. They've been very transparent with us, and they've told us a lot. They're doing a lot better than Sacramento ever did in Irons. They're doing a lot better than San Francisco ever did with Zodiac. And I think that part of the reason that we don't know a lot from this case is simply because law enforcement doesn't know it either. I think that the task force and the Midwest police jurisdictions involved in this investigation are relatively communicative, probably highly communicative, relatively speaking, with the public. And I think they're doing an excellent fucking job doing that. I hope they continue to do that. I hope that if there's any new developments that we are told about those developments, because this individual needs to be identified. He's extremely dangerous. And he could strike at any time, even at this age, which he would probably today be like, maybe in his, let me think, 50s or 60s. He's probably in his 60s, is my guess. And I think he's still out there. So I'm going to go, I like your idea, Zap. It's kind of fun. Just a little thought experiment on ChatGPT. I'm going to go have ChatGPT write a criminal profile on the I-70 killer, and then I'm going to pick out what parts I like and see where ChatGPT gets with it. Live from a spinning ball, this has been the most banned prowler online.